I regret that I have only one life to give for my country. That was the statement of America's most famous spy, but there are some others, hidden heroes. And we have a book about a secret spy ring that may have helped turn the war at a crucial time of our fight for independence. And that story is told on a book that is now number 6 on Amazon. It's called The Secret Six by Brian Kilmeade and his associate Don Yeager. And Brian is here with us right after we have this.
When George Washington's Continental Army lost the Battle of Brooklyn Heights in August 1776, and then went on to lose control of Manhattan, it looked like the Revolutionary War might be over and the Americans defeated. In the end, though, Washington's army made a comeback and was ultimately victorious. But it wasn't because of the Continental Army's superior military might. It was because of a little-known group of 5 men and 1 woman known as the Culper spy ring. Fox and Friends host and history buff Brian Kilmeade uncovers the bravery and heroism of these clandestine spies in his new book, George Washington's Secret Six, the spy ring that saved the American Revolution.
You never heard of him, did you? Until today. Brian is going to bring it out. He's here with us. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, it reads like an adventure story. It's very exciting. The Secret Six, the Culper, after Culper, the Culper ring, was that what they?
Yeah, Culpeper County, right around where George Washington grew up. So they shortened it to Culper. The original guy was Samuel Culper, and then they said, let's make him Culper Sr. Let's make Robert Townsend, the dry goods keeper, Culper Jr. And then all of them would have pseudonames, and they'd work for 3.5 years behind closed doors. And Washington, as far as we could tell, only met 3 of them. But he had their trust, and they trusted Washington, and we have their letters, and we know what they've actually accomplished.
Well, the key guy, the military man, was what, a Major Talmadge, wasn't he? Wasn't he the one that was sort of driving the show, or not?
Pat, this guy belongs in your founder's hotel. I'm telling you, Major Talmadge is a guy that everybody should Google right now, because here's a guy who was by Washington's side. You're not needing a third person to interpret who Washington was. He wrote it down. His kids urged him to. 77-page biography. He was the one who landed in, who came from Long Island, who went there, and Washington said, find people we can trust. He found a farmer, Abraham Woodhull. He found a longshoreman in Caleb Brewster. He found a bar owner, tavern owner in Austin Row. And then later he would find a dry goods owner named Robert Townsend. He was the guy that was top secret until the 1930s. And we didn't really give him his proper due because of the Depression and World War II. But as you piece it all together, when I stumbled onto it, I just couldn't believe it wasn't unwound before.
Are we going to give him something, give him a monument or something in Washington?
We really should. You know what I did in the book, and I know you noticed, is I took a picture of Robert Townsend's grave.
Oh, okay.
And he's in the back of a barn. And it's a family grave, nondescript. No one visits, the original headstone. And all those people in Arlington belong there, but so does he. He belongs with more pomp and circumstance.
A lot of people have bad-mouthed Washington. They say, well, he was running all the time. Every time he turned around, he lost battles, he lost Manhattan. And the thing hung by a thread, didn't it? The whole American experiment could have been snuffed out in a couple of bad battles, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, you got to run because you know your fight's got to wait to another day. They had one big battle. It didn't go well. So Washington said, we can outlast these guys. We're stubborn. We know what we want. They cannot last here for long. We're going to beat them down. They threw in more troops. They had up to 90,000. Washington hung at the top at 9,000. How did he do it? He outthought him. He outspied him. In fact, the first quote in this book is from Major Beckworth. And he said, Washington didn't outfight us. He outspied us. And you have to understand, I think you know better than anybody because you're such a student of history, you have to know when to fight and when to get out. Because if you sit there and say, well, we fight as men, well, no, you lose. So that's what he had to do in the Battle of Brooklyn, escape to Manhattan, where magically a fog appeared, allowing him to sneak out across the East River into Manhattan and ultimately get out to fight another day. And the day he leaves Manhattan, when he gets permission from the Congress in Philadelphia, 9/11. So on 9/11, he gets permission to leave. Little do we know what 9/11 would mean hundreds of years later.
Unbelievable. You've got an interesting story in here about those Hessians. You know, he went across the Delaware River and made that incredible attack. And there was another spy that set that deal up. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, Honeyman worked with George Washington in the French-Indian War.
Yeah.
And then when this broke out between the British and the emerging Americans, he decides, I'll work for the British. And he's a butcher, and he's helping out one day. Well, one day he just happens to get captured by Washington himself. And then he goes to prison, and he magically gets out. And when he gets out, he's so relieved to go to the Hessians. He says, guys, I know it's Christmas. Keep eating. Keep drinking. I was just with the Americans, man. Those guys are a mess. They got no plans. They're going to fall apart. You know what the truth was? Yeah. They were coming over to take over the whole camp, and he was a double agent. He was planted back with the Hessians because Washington began his magical spy activity really with Honeyman.
And the Hessians were drunk then on Christmas Eve. They were having a big party.
Yes, they were between half drunk and half hungover. Not a good combination.
That's the worst of all.
That's what I think. I wouldn't know, but that's what I hear.
I'm sure.
Right.
Well, trust me, it's true.
And a lot of those Hessians wanted to be us anyway. A lot of them stuck around, and we treated them great. And they said, hey, you know what? These Americans aren't bad. And they ended up, they were hired guns.
Did the Culper ring, were they, we started out with the one who said, I've only got one life to live, but he wasn't part of this ring. He was the progenitor of it.
It took a year for Washington, and he was devastated by Hale's death. He was a school teacher, Yale grad, who came over here majestically, but without any espionage knowledge, caught in a couple of days, hung at 66 and 3rd, right in Manhattan. There's a little plaque there by the labels full less, or whatever it is, where he was hung. And then what he did is, I'm going to take a year, but I'm not going to do a guy, I'm going to do a ring. And this ring is going to stay underground, and they're going to have a way to communicate in which if they are caught, they will not necessarily be killed, or the others won't be dragged down. Okay. He used invisible ink, he used encryption, he used dead drops, and I went to Langley, Virginia, and I asked the CIA, I said, guys, am I overstating this? Is there a book here? And he goes, not only aren't you overstating it, what they learned in the middle of the war, we treat our agents before we even send them on any mission today. So these are average, everyday citizens. And, Pat, I know you can understand this. My message is this. A bartender, a farmer, a dry goods owner, a socialite, and a printer. They did great things for an extraordinary cause. We know Washington's great. We know about all these other guys, but there was extraordinary people, so-called ordinary people, who did great things. What
about Benedict Arnold? You've got a lot of material about him and Major Andre. You want to talk about that?
Well, the big mystery in our book is 355. It's a woman. Everybody had numbers. Washington was 711. Woodhull, the farmer, was 712. Townsend, the dry goods owner, was 714. She was 355. We believe she got close to Major Andre. Keep in mind, Major Andre and Benedict Arnold were working together to turn over West Point. It would have destroyed us. We would have lost the Hudson and lost the war. So we believe that she infiltrated the social circles, got word out to Talmadge, look out, there's a major officer about to turn sides to a loyalist. So he was on the lookout in that entire region. And he brought it to his grave exactly what took place. But Talmadge was able to eyeball Major Andre, who was detained by 2 vagrants, and said, this is not who he says he is. This is no average, everyday British citizen. Okay. This is a guy that is about to link up with Arnold. They found in his sock the letter that was supposed to go to Arnold. They unearthed the whole thing. Arnold barely escapes, but they stopped West Point from going to the bad guys at that time, which was the British.
What was in Arnold's craw? What got him off? I mean, he was supposed to be a very highly regarded officer.
To me, in my humble opinion, I always think that he always felt as though he was getting the short end of the stick from not getting paid for his great expedition up in Canada. I feel as though that he wanted Washington's commission. He didn't get it. He's walking with a limp, and he was wounded, wasn't paid for. And he just said, you know what, I'm going to go to West Point. And I have a sense that the winners of this war are going to be the British, and I'm then going to get the acclaim I deserve. He picked wrong again. And that's pretty much, he actually abandoned his family and left him at West Point to escape on his own. So that does reveal a little bit of his character. Yeah. But he did show tremendous valor in battle.
Major Andre, though, got caught and hanged, right?
Right. And he was a charismatic guy, I understand, that was not disliked by anybody. But they said, Washington said, listen, we'll give you Andre back. You give us Arnold back. And General Clinton said, I can't do that swap. He goes, well, then he dies. And Andre came out, thought he was going to get swapped. They said, no, you're going to die. And he said, can I get shot in a firing squad? And they said, no, you're going to be hanged. And he said, all right. And that Major Talmadge writes about that because he was there, and he was roommates with Nathan Hale. You talk about closing the circle.
Unbelievable.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I get chills looking at it. I don't pretend to be this great historian. I am just an American that wanted to tell this story, and by hunting it down.
It's a fun story. Last thing, whatever happened to those guys when it was all finished? They just kind of blended back into the population?
They did. I think Woodhull became a judge. Austin Rowe kept the bar. It's a great business. Robert Townsend never got his act together. We have letters from his older brother saying, Robert, the war's over. Come on. My humble opinion, PTSD. I think the 3.5 years of constant struggle. And then Rivington ended up leaving, going back to England and not really having much acclaim. We know what happened with Arnold. And 355 died, we believe, before the war ended. When Arnold got back into the city, I believe she was targeted right away.
Was she killed?
Yeah, we believe she was killed. By the paperback, we think we could be very close to her name. I hooked up with the Townsend family. They gave me hundreds, 1 week ago, they gave me hundreds of pages of family stuff. They go, we're going to get to the bottom of this. So everybody's into it.
Well, it's fun. Well, it's a mystery story, and it's number 6 and moving up to 1. I hope Brian, it's a great success.
Well, there's no book tour that would be complete without stopping. Now, one of the things I look forward to most is saying, let's go to the 700 Club as soon as it came out. And this is great. And I'm so jealous of these facilities.
Gorgeous.
Look at this. It's incredible. You could land a plane in this place.
Right, well, you can move Fox and Friends down here. We'd love to have you.
Believe me, we come once, we're not leaving. Yeah.
Good to have you with us, man. Well, here it is. George Washington's Secret 6 is available wherever books are sold, and we appreciate Brian being here with us. God bless you.
Pat.
It's good to see you, buddy.
You make this hosting thing look too easy. You're making me look bad.
If I give you some lessons, I'm in it for 52 years. I should have learned something. All right.